caregiving is relentless. It is exhausting beyond belief, and caregivers need a break. So it's a way for people to get a break and drop their loved one off in a safe environment, be well taken care of again so they can go tend to their other duties.
Talking with people about how to have a great retirement. This is the Rock Your Retirement Show. We don't talk about money, but we talk about almost everything else you need to rock your retirement. Now, here's your host, Kathy Klein.
Welcome to Rock Your Retirement. This is the show where we talk about retirement lifestyle. We don't talk about money, but we talk about everything else that you need to know before you retire. But if you're already retired, don't worry. We've got information for you also. Now, if you've reviewed the show on iTunes, we greatly appreciate it. This helps us grow the show, and it helps us get the information out to more people. Our guest for today is Lisa Tyburski. And Lisa began her career as an account representative for Unum Life Insurance Company. And the really cool thing is that the long-term care insurance that I purchased way back when is with Unum. So we have a connection there. Lisa has a passion for helping families affected by Alzheimer's, since her mother and her aunt both suffered from the disease. She knows all too well that caring for a person with dementia is physically, emotionally, and also financially challenging. The demands of day-to-day care, changing family roles, and difficult decisions about placement in a care facility can be very difficult to handle. She's actively involved in the Walk to End Alzheimer's and has raised thousands of dollars for the Alzheimer's Association. Her role is to help families in the community learn about the valuable resources and wonderful care provided at the Glenner Centers. She earned a Bachelor's of Art degree in economics at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. Did I pronounce that right, Lisa?
No, it's Worcester. But
Thank you.
People have a hard time with that word.
I know. I'm a West Coast girl. I knew I was pronouncing it wrong. And
that's okay.
Thank you. She's been married for 25 years and has 3 children. So, Lisa, welcome to the show. Thanks for helping me pronounce. How do you say it again?
It's Worcester, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for helping me pronounce that. I'm terrible at those kind of things.
That's okay. It's like people out here, or if you're not from here, you call La Jolla La Jolla, right?
Yeah, La Jolla. Yeah, because you're jolly.
La Jolla, right?
Exactly.
Right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share our information today.
Well, I'm so excited too, and let me tell you why. So my dad has Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and people who've listened to the show for a while already know that. I had no idea that there were places like Glenner. And for my listeners, Lisa's going to tell you all about it, but I just want to give you a quick introduction. So there are places out there called adult daycare centers, and I hate that name. I don't know what we can do about changing that name, but I hate it. But what they do is not only do they help conserve your family funds, your family resources, but even better, your family member, in my opinion, gets better care than when they have one-on-one, non-medical health or, people coming to your house to sit with your parent while you go to work. And my father-in-law had a one-on-one care person. I'm not saying that all one-on-one care is bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that most people who do the one-on-one care, they don't have programs. They're not, they're not helping your family member stay mentally active. And that's what I like about adult daycare centers. They've got socialization and they have active programs. Did I explain that right, Lisa?
You did. And I'm glad you started off with that, because a lot of people have no idea that adult daycare is an option. I don't like that name either, to be honest. So at the Glenner, we actually call them adult day programs.
Adult day programs. I love that.
Yeah, we say adult day program because, you're right. As soon as you say adult daycare, people think little kids. And I mean, we're talking about grown adults, and they don't want any part of adult daycare, right? So you're right. The name is a deterrent a lot of the time, but But yeah, I did not know when we were caring for my mom, and she lived back east. So, I wasn't here in San Diego looking at resources, but I had no idea that a specialized day program for people with Alzheimer's existed. And I think that is the struggle that I have, and why I'm so thankful that you have me on the show, because it does exist. And I often call the Glenner Center a hidden gem in San Diego, because once people find out about us and find out about what we can offer, they're thrilled. They're absolutely thrilled to be able to have this as a resource.
What is it? How does it work?
So how it works is we have 3 facilities in San Diego. I should start off and say that. So we have 3 centers in San Diego, we call them, and they are located in Encinitas, Hillcrest, and Chula Vista, by the way. But basically what they are is it is a facility. Sometimes people get confused and they say, okay, so you come to our house and do activities. No, they're actual facilities. And people will drop off their loved one during the day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And they'll be cared for during the day while their adult child or their spouse goes to work, run errands, take a nap, go to the doctor, whatever you need to do to tend to the other areas of your life. Because as you had mentioned earlier, caregiving it's relentless. It is exhausting beyond belief if you've ever gone through it. And caregivers need a break. They need a break. So it's a way for people to get a break and drop their loved one off in a safe environment, be well taken care of again, so they can go tend to their other duties.
I'm so glad that you're here talking about the Glenner Center. Tell me, how did the Glenner get started?
Well, actually, the Glenner Center was founded in 1982 by Dr. Glenner and his wife, Joy Glenner. Dr. Glenner was a researcher at the UCSD School of Medicine, and he was working on, trying to advance research in the Alzheimer's field. He was actually the researcher that discovered the beta amyloid protein that is in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. So he was world renowned for that discovery. But the reason that he opened the Glenner Centers is there's quite a story that goes along with that. One night, probably around midnight, he and Joy received a phone call from the husband of one of Dr. Glenner's Alzheimer's patients. So the wife had Alzheimer's disease, and the husband was taking care of her, and he was frantic. He was absolutely at the end of his rope, and he had a loaded gun in his hand. He was actually going to murder his wife and commit suicide.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, I mean, it just, we're talking about caregiver stress and how difficult it is. And that's certainly an understatement, because this man at the time, I mean, his mindset was that he thought that was the only way out. He was just struggling so much. So he called Dr. Glenner, in this frenzy, and luckily Joy Glenner was able to have the call traced. They called the police, and they were able to stop a murder-suicide. So the next day they thought, oh my gosh, we've got to do something for these caregivers and take care of the people that are, caring for this population. So it's a pretty powerful story. And then, Dr. Glenner, with his research and his discovery of the beta amyloid, was so incredible, but then they turned their focus onto caring for the caregivers. So that's how we were founded. So it's a pretty powerful story. I like to share that just to let people know just how difficult it is to care for someone with Alzheimer's.
That is an incredible story. Thank you for sharing it. Now, there are these types of facilities outside of San Diego, right? Because I do have listeners that are in different parts of the country. So how would they, and of course I know about Glenner, people in San Diego, not everybody, I mean, I'm glad you're on the show, but how would somebody who isn't in San Diego find out about a place like Glenner where they live?
They would probably they could Google, of course, adult daycare centers, specialized adult daycare centers. They could call the Alzheimer's Association, their local chapter. They usually have a list of all of the well-respected resources in the community that specialize in dementia. So that would be a way to start.
Okay.
So I'm glad you asked that too, because not all day centers are created equal. There are a lot of daycare centers that are big, 100 people in a room in a church, for example, which might work for some people. For us, our specialty is Alzheimer's and dementia. For us, that is not how we do things. Our centers are smaller. We're licensed for 30 people in our Chula Vista and Encinitas Center and 24 in Hillcrest. And we keep it smaller and more intimate on purpose so that our participants, as we call them, we refer to them as participants rather than patients, are not overwhelmed. So again, we specialize. Now, to find a center like that in another area of the country, again, you would, probably call the Alzheimer's Association, or there might be some placement agencies too that sometimes they usually would refer people to communities, residential communities, but some placement agencies might know about local daycare centers. One of the things too that you brought that up, the Glenner Center is actually, we were the first nonprofit adult day healthcare program in the nation, actually back in 1982, and Dr. Glenner and Joy started our centers. And we are still the only nonprofit dementia-specific adult day health program in San Diego. So that's an important feature.
Okay, so the Glenner is specifically for Alzheimer's. So you're saying that there are other adult day programs that would be non-dementia, or are most of them for people with dementia?
There's a lot of daycare programs will care for people with dementia, which is great. But they don't necessarily specialize or only treat people with dementia. And I'm saying dementia too because we are the Glenner Alzheimer's Family Centers, but we do care for people with Parkinson's dementia, for example, Lewy body dementia, frontal temporal dementia. So it is not just Alzheimer's. I do want to clarify that for your listeners. But yeah, I'm sorry. A lot of daycare centers are not specialized in dementia. So that is kind of an important thing to note.
Yeah, I think that if you're taking your family member to an adult day center and they have dementia, I think it's important to take them somewhere where they have knowledge in that specific condition. Because... Well,
and that's what I love too. And, having gone through it in my family, and I know what it's like to be, the adult daughter, the oldest adult daughter in that situation. And there's so much emotion that goes along with, first of all, with just the disease in general, or knowing that your loved one has the disease. Then second of all, you're trying to find care for your parent. And you feel guilty about that because you feel like you should be able to do it yourself. You don't want to have to put them into a residential community, but yet you're completely stressed out. You need some help and you need some relief. So again, that's why a daycare center is just such an incredible option.
What do they do in a daycare center?
So during the day, we do keep everybody active and engaged. We don't force them to, of course. I mean, we are, very respectful. These are grown adults we're talking about. And if they don't want to participate in the activities, that's completely fine. But we do try to keep them engaged and keep their brain active. We'll do current events. We do lots of music a couple times a day. We have the Humane Society bring pets in once or twice a month. That's very therapeutic for our participants. And then, just a lot of music, a lot of singing, a lot of, kind of brain stimulating activities. And we try to gear it towards our group, depending on the cognitive function of the group. So we have an activity director in each center that comes up with activities for every day.
And all of the activities they stay in the center, right? They don't go out?
Yeah, we have little outside areas outside of our center where they can get some fresh air, but primarily they're inside.
Okay, that's good. So, great. They're doing things. They're not sitting there watching TV.
Yeah, and what you had mentioned when we first started talking is one-on-one care is fabulous and can be very fabulous for some people. They don't want to go, into a situation where they're with a bunch of people and they want to stay home. That can be very, very helpful. And there are a lot of excellent home care agencies out there. But bringing them to a day center, like I said, it keeps them active and engaged rather than just with one person. Maybe, the person could be the best caregiver on the planet, but it's only one person. So when you do come to the daycare center, you're socializing and we're doing the activities, but just the interaction with other people is really, really helpful for people with dementia. It's really good to stay engaged and be among your peers.
I think it's helpful for everybody. Everybody needs socialization, right?
Everybody, yeah. And it can be very, as you age in general, it can be very lonely. And there's, a high incidence of just loneliness and depression among that population. And again, just staying home with one caregiver, again, not to, diminish the importance of home care because it's awesome, but daycare just sort of offers that extra socialization. And then when the person comes home at night, you probably are familiar with this. There's a syndrome called sundowners syndrome, where people with dementia tend to get very agitated and irritated in the evening hours. So if during the day they're active and engaged and socializing, they come home more tired, and it helps to reduce the incidence of sundowning in the evening.
And you can also, and I love the fact that, and I didn't realize that socialization and activities helped with that. So thanks for pointing that out. But I also wanted to let the listeners know that you can use one-on-one caregiving in conjunction with adult days programs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up. We do have home care agencies that will come into the home and feed the person with dementia breakfast, help get them dressed. That's often a difficult task for the family member who's trying to get their kids ready for school or get to work themselves. It can be an effort to get the person with dementia ready. So they will come in the morning for, say, 2 to 4 hours, depending on what their whole shift requirement is, and then bring them to our day center for a half a day. It isn't required that people come for a full day to our center. They can come for a half day. And then they sort of plug in that socialization piece into the day, into their care plan, and then pick them up at the end of the day and bring them home, make dinner and change them, change their clothes at the end of the day and all that. So yeah, there are a lot of home care agencies or opportunities for home care agencies to plug in a little bit of socialization in the daycare center during the day. So
yeah, and then it's better for everybody. You have the one-on-one care in the morning and in the evening, helping get people up and dressed and fed. And then at night, helping, with dinner and washing up and then going to bed. And so you can still do both. You can. There's opportunity for both.
Absolutely. And what it does too is we haven't talked about cost yet, but our day program and most day programs they're going to be probably the most cost-effective professional care option that you will find. I mean, short of doing it yourself, which is free, but it takes such a toll on your health as a caregiver. So a professional care option, or the most cost-effective professional care option, would be an adult daycare program. Residential communities are awesome too. They are needed. There does come a time when they are absolutely needed, but this is a much more reasonably priced option if they're not quite ready.
So how much does it cost? About? So this is an evergreen podcast. So somebody might be listening to this 5 years from now. So I just want to mention that we're talking in 2017 and prices can change. But so about what is it right now?
For the Glenner, right now, it is $95 a day for 8 hours of care and $65 a day for 4 hours. So 8 hours is our full day rate and or our full day time frame, and 4 hours is our half day. So it's 95 and 65. And with that, again, remember our care is very, very specialized, and all of our caregivers are trained in caring for people with dementia. We do have an RN too. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but we do have an RN on site all day long at each center. That is one of the staples of the Glenner Center. Dr. Glenner and Joy decided that we were going to have an RN on staff, and we maintain that to this day. The other important thing for people all over the country to look at, and I will explain the staffing ratio at the Glenner. That's a very, very important feature. So our participant to staff ratio is 5 to 1, and that's very, very low, which is great. So people are getting really, really hands-on care for that cost. So I'm saying all of these details. So for $95 a day, sometimes people say, "Oh my gosh, $95 a day, that's so much," but it actually works out to be under $12 an hour, which is a lot less than some people pay for teenage babysitters, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk about how these adult day, I don't want to call them adult day care, adult day programs work, and the costs involved, and how you might be able to pay for that. So we're going to take a short break. We're talking with Lisa Tyburski from glenner.org. And we'll be right back.
How do you tackle a storage room? My name is Lisa Woodruff, and I am a professional organizer and productivity expert. And today, I want to give you 3 tips on how to tackle your storage room. It's one box at a time, my friends, one box at a time. So here are the best ways to tackle that box. Number 1, carry it upstairs into your kitchen, preferably. Put it on a countertop so it's easy to see what's inside the box. Step 2, you need to empty it. Take every single thing out of the box and look at it on your kitchen counter or kitchen table. Some will be trash, some will be donatable, and some of the items will go to other family members. Whatever you decide you're going to keep, I want you to put it in a new box with a label. That could be a new cardboard box, but I would prefer you use something that is waterproof, like a clear plastic box with a lid, and label it. If you have items to give other family members, don't put them back in your storage room. Make sure they go to the family members. One box at a time, you can do this. Check out the Organize 365 podcast for more on how to get organized as you rock your retirement.
Welcome back. We are talking with Lisa Tyburski at the Glenner Center, and you can go to www.glenner.org to find out more about it. Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Kathy.
Now, before we went to break, we were talking about the Glenner Center and what the cost is. Basically, it's $95 a day currently. And we were comparing that a little bit and saying that it can be used in conjunction with home care. How much does home care cost? I mean, you were saying it's $95 a day for an adult day program such as your own. But how does that compare to one-on-one care?
One-on-one care usually, from what I've heard from the other agencies or the agencies that I'm familiar with in San Diego, are roughly $23 an hour upwards to $27, $28 an hour, probably depending on the experience of the caregiver. But that's roughly the range of what you will find. A nurse, if you had an RN come to your house, again, which we do have at all of our centers, that's going to be much, much more. Most home care agencies, though, do have, they have caregivers, not RNs, coming to the house on a regular basis. And again, that would be anywhere from $23 to $28 an hour, something like that.
Wow, that's a big difference, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it really is a big difference. It really is a big difference. And again, I want to be sure to point out that, home care is a wonderful option for many people, but my goal is to share with your audience that there is another option. There definitely is another option of daycare or day program, again, right, we should say. And again, combining it with the home care agencies.
I'm very passionate about this. Like I said, when I had no idea that such a thing existed. Such a great idea. I think you get better care. When you're looking for an adult day program, what are some of the things that you should look for?
Well, yeah, again, if you are looking for a day program and your loved one does have dementia, you do want to ask if they specialize or at least have the ability to care for people with dementia. Caring for someone with dementia is much different than caring for someone with, a broken hip or, another ailment. It's very specific. And so you want to find out if their caregivers have any training in caring for people with dementia and dealing with any of the behaviors associated. You also want to ask about the staff to participant ratio. I mentioned that earlier, that makes a big difference because that will tell you how much time the caregiver will be able to spend with your parent or your spouse. So that would be a big question to ask. And then I would ask how many total participants are in the center on any given day. Again, we keep our center census smaller on purpose so it's not overwhelming. I know if I had brought my mom to a center with 100 people in a big room, it would be extremely, extremely overwhelming, and I think would just make the situation worse. In my opinion, it might work for some people, but I just think dementia is very, very, very specific, and I think the size of the room and the area and the number of people there is a big question to consider, or a big issue to consider, rather. And then I would ask, again, if they have a nurse on staff, and if they don't have an RN all day, like the Glenner does, make sure that they do have an RN that is available, and ask if they can manage medications. That's also a big consideration, because I know, a lot of times people with dementia are taking medication for the dementia, but oftentimes they're taking medication for other conditions that they have. So it can be very confusing for a family member to keep track of. And oftentimes you will ask if the person took the medication, and because of their condition, they oftentimes cannot tell you. So if you have your loved one at a center during the day and there is someone there that can help manage the medications and keep track for the family, that's a huge, huge benefit. So those would probably be the big ones that I would look for in a day program.
Okay, well, that sounds really good. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of other things. And for my listeners, if you're hearing that in the background, that's my bird, Mr. Grant. Sorry about that.
What's your bird's name? Mr. Grant?
I know, Mr. Grant.
That's cute.
Thank you.
That's cute.
Yeah, when I first got him,
what kind of bird?
He's a Moluccan cockatoo. So if you're old enough to remember the show Beretta, he's one of those birds, but he's pink.
That's great.
And sometimes he likes to talk to my listeners. Okay, so back to the show. Okay, so I'm taking my mom and I'm I'm either dropping her off myself or I'm having a caregiver drop her off, and she's going to be there for 8 hours. Do I need to pack a lunch? How does that work?
No, actually, good. I'm glad that you asked that too. We have meals delivered every day by Volunteers of America. They bring our hot meals in. We do a breakfast too, which is more of a continental breakfast, muffins and toast, things like that. But then the hot meals are brought in every day. So no, you do not have to pack a lunch.
Okay, well that's good. Now, do most places have, like, what if mom is gluten-free or something like that? Are there exceptions for that, or is it just here's your peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
No, no, not at all. So we will work with, we have a representative at Volunteers of America, of course, that we will work with. And if someone has an allergy or sensitivity, we will certainly accommodate, or Volunteers of America will work to accommodate that. And then, another thing, since you brought up the meals too, is, a lot of times people with dementia will have difficulty eating, and we certainly have caregivers that will be able to help them with eating, and then tasks like in the bathroom and things like that. So that would be another, that'd be another consideration too, to ask, back to your previous question about, what would you want to look for in a day program?
Okay. Do I have to pay extra for that if they need help eating or going to the bathroom?
No. And a lot of assisted living communities too, we haven't talked too much about that yet, but a lot of assisted living communities will have a base rate. And then depending on the amount of care that your loved one requires, there will be sort of a tiered payment schedule. Ours is not like that. It is a flat rate of $95 or $65, depending on full day or half day. So all of that specialized care is included in the price.
Oh, it's so good. Do you have people that live in assisted living that come over, or is it's you're either going to do one or the other, because assisted living tends to be a bit pricier?
Yeah, actually we do. So the way that we work with residential communities, which again are needed, very often it does come to be a time where you do need placement in a residential care facility, and there are many great facilities out there. Where we come into play is, even though the communities are great and beautiful and provide excellent care, a lot of times the family members have a really hard time with that. They just, there's the guilt factor. They feel very, very guilty about placing their loved one in a community. And so that's where we can come in while they're thinking about it. So if they're not quite ready, but they are looking for care, that means there is an issue, and that means that their loved one does need care. So a day program is a perfect first step in the care continuum. So I do want to say that in relation to, people looking for placement. And then secondly, in a long-winded answer to your question, we do have people come from assisted livings that will come usually for some for full day, but some for half day. So if they're in assisted living and they require more socialization than is being provided at the community, we do have the communities will bring them over to our centers. So that was a great question.
Okay. Now, what if I don't have a lot of money and I really don't know how I'm going to pay for this? Like, how can I pay for a center like this? Like, are there options out there? Can I use insurance? How does it work? Does Medicare pay?
Medicare does not pay. Medicare does not cover it. We do accept private pay, of course, long-term care insurance. If your long-term care policy covers adult daycare, then we will accept that as a form of payment. We also accept Medi-Cal in 2 of our centers. Our Hillcrest Center is not licensed for Medi-Cal, but our Encinitas and Chula Vista programs are licensed for Medi-Cal.
For people that are living in other states, Medi-Cal is California's version of Medicaid. So you can ask your center if they accept Medicaid. So I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
So we also do accept VA benefits too. So the VA has a program for adult day health care, and we'll cover an adult day health care program. That is something that, you'll want to contact the VA and find out if you're eligible. From what I understand, there is a small copay that is assigned, a daily copay that's assigned by the VA. And I believe it is income-based, but that's all determined by the VA. But we will accept that as benefits or as compensation, VA benefits.
You can pay out of pocket. You can potentially get assistance from the VA. You might be able to get assistance from your state's Medicaid program. And if you have long-term care insurance, it might cover it as well. And of course, you can write a check, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are there contracts? Yep. Like if I want to come in and test it out, do I have to sign like a 2-year contract, or can I test it out?
No. You can come in. You do have to have an assessment. So we do have to have you meet with our center director and our nurse, and there is a sort of an assessment or evaluation period and paperwork. So it isn't just a drop off. Whenever it works, it does have to be a planned schedule. We do ask that our participants come 1 full day a week or 2 half days a week. And that is certainly for the care of the individual with dementia and just to keep consistency. If you only come once a month, it's sort of like starting over. So we try to keep some, consistency. So that's the only requirement. So again, an assessment period. And again, in answer to your question, yes, they can come in and do a 2-hour time where they try it out.
Okay. And try it out and see I completely understand too why you'd want the consistency, because your family members are going to make friends. They're going to get used to seeing people. And if you just want to come once a month, it's going to be like a new thing and scary. So people with dementia, it can be scary for them, right?
Yeah. And, in all honesty, even though our program is so beneficial, we do have a little bit of an adjustment period or some people have a bit of an adjustment period. It is new, and it's new people and new caretakers and new environments. There might be a week or 2 where they're just kind of uneasy. So if you get through that initial adjustment period, then you'd have to just start all over again if you didn't come for another month. So, yeah, the consistency is just hugely, hugely important.
Yeah. So, I hope that my stepmother takes advantage of adult day programs. She doesn't live in San Diego, but she lives in Florida. He's getting, more and more obvious that he has dementia. He has Parkinson's, so he's got Parkinson's related Alzheimer's.
Dementia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can definitely, when I see him once a year, I can definitely see the change. And it's hard for people, it's hard. Especially hard for her because she's the primary caregiver, but it's hard on everybody, the whole family. I'm sure that's what you found with your family as well.
Well, it is hard. It's hard on everyone in different ways. It was extremely difficult on my dad, who was now the caregiver of his spouse, and if you just think about that as a relationship change, just that, and, to go from being a spouse with someone, and then now all of a sudden you're caring for them. And then as a child, from my perspective, I'll never forget when my mom asked if I was her mother. Those kinds of things are, think about that. It's just so upsetting on so many levels, emotionally because of questions like that. Physically, if you're the spouse and you're also more, you're in your 70s or 80s, it's difficult physically to care for, for a loved one. It's draining. It's draining on just so many levels. So that's why just to get a little bit of a break, if you can care for your loved one in the evenings and on the weekends, or you want to add some home care, day programs, it's just such a benefit. So I hope that they can find something in Florida that's similar. That would be fantastic.
I hope so too. I mean, they live in the Villages, which is the largest over 55 community in the United States. They have something like
what's it called?
The Villages.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think they have like 131,000 people that live there. They have their own Medicare program.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And while I was there, so I went there for Christmas and saw my dad, my stepmom, and my sister and her husband were there as well. And I went ahead. I have this little freebie called the ABCs of Alzheimer's, which was basically the information that I got from Kristen Cursado, I think, who used to be a weather girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Kristen Cursado. Yeah, I actually did an interview with her on KOSI, a year and a half ago or so. And I know her story. Her mom had Alzheimer's.
Yeah, Lewy body. Lewy body. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or dementia. Okay, yeah. And she took care of her. I think, if I remember the story correctly, that she ended up leaving her job to care for her mom and went back east. And then, Yeah, I should have her on the show. Caregiving is a full-time job.
Yeah, I should actually have her on the show. But I had gone to a presentation that she did. I think it was for the Caregiver Coalition here in San Diego. And I wrote down what she said. And she had this ABCs of Alzheimer's, I think. And so I adapted that. I give her credit on it. And I had emailed her and let her know that I was doing this. But for people who do have a family member that has dementia, you can go to rockyourretirement.com/ABC. And you can download the ABCs of dementia. I forget what I called it, but it's basically, how do you handle it? What things do you need to know? Like, I wouldn't have known that you should not approach somebody with dementia from behind. Like just tap them on the shoulder. Hi, Mom, because they might get scared. They don't know what's going on, right? And they can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are lots of things that you don't know about that are simple once you read it, or once you understand it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, this, Lisa, don't argue with somebody with dementia. Don't tell them that it's 2017, not 1957.
Exactly. And that is it's so important. For example, and I had no idea about this. I know now, but if you have, let's say, a black and white checkered floor, so you have big black squares in the floor, right? A person with dementia thinks that is a big black hole. They think they're going to fall in that. I have no idea. So if you notice, somebody with dementia, or like a welcome mat, for example, a dark colored welcome mat, that looks like a big cavernous hole, and they're scared of that. So those are the types of things. Once you know that, then you'd be like, okay, you tried to eliminate that in your environment. And, another thing, like you said, arguing with someone with dementia, there's a lot of people that will say, no, Mom, don't you remember I told you that? And it doesn't do anyone any good to do that, because obviously the person doesn't remember that they just told you that, or they wouldn't have said it.
Right.
So it's really, really hard for the caregiver, though, to just listen to it over and over and over. Caregivers are human, right? So it's very frustrating. But if you do know that the best way is to not argue and not correct them. For example, like you just mentioned, no, it's not 1957. But, I've heard instances where someone will say, well, I'm going to go see my mom. And meanwhile, they're 80 years old. So their mom has passed away. And so the person will say, no, your mom died 30 years ago. And it's as if they're reliving the death all over again. So there's no reason to say that. You tell them they relived the death, and then an hour later they ask to go see their mom, and then you say that, no, your mom passed away, they relive it again. So there's really no point. And I'm certainly not a dementia. I'm not an expert, as I'm not a nurse, or I'm not an expert in that, but I have learned that isn't the way, to talk to someone with dementia. I think the best way is to really just distract and start talking about something different.
Right.
Rather than having live over or relive negative situation. So, and along those lines, one of the things to look for in a day program or anywhere in your community is to look for support groups. The Glenner Center offers several support groups in San Diego specifically for caregivers of a loved one with dementia. And those can be a huge help for people because you're in a room where you're talking to, 10 or 15 other people that are going through primarily the same exact thing as you are. And while we have a facilitator in all of our groups that are our center directors actually, so they're very knowledgeable, but I think the benefit comes from the people that are attending, talking to each other and sharing all of the stories and things that they've gone through themselves. And, what happened when you went to this doctor? What happened when you, went to this community, et cetera. So those can be a huge, huge, huge help for people is to attend a support group.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. And on that note, I can't believe the time has flown by, but we are running out of time.
Oh, we're done already?
I know. I should totally have you come back. But so before we go, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to my listeners so that they would have a good retirement? And I know that you focus on the Glenner, but it can be about anything.
Well, I think I will keep it about Glenner and the topic that we, are talking about. I think if you are someone that has recently retired and now you're finding yourself caring for a loved one with dementia, don't be afraid to seek help so that you still can, enjoy parts of your retirement. So many people just don't want to seek professional help, and it can be just such a huge help in to keeping your, quality of life better and, enjoying your retirement while you're still caring for someone with dementia. I guess that would be my biggest advice. So.
Okay, good. Now, how can my listeners contact you if they want more information about the Glenner Center?
Well, they can go to our website, which is www.glenner.org, or they can certainly contact me directly, which is Tyburski@glenner.org. Or there is another general email on our website, which is information@glenner.org. So even if people are not sure that they need daycare, but they really don't know what they need, they can give us a call and we'll be happy to connect them with other resources in the community, other wonderful home care agencies or assisted living communities, placement agencies. We do have a list of all kinds of preferred providers in the community. So please don't hesitate to give us a call.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa, for coming on the show. And for my listener, if you want...
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And we did mention the ABCs of Alzheimer's. If you want that freebie, just go to rockyourretirement.com/ABC. And for my listeners, we will see you next time on Rock Your Retirement.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Retirement Show. If you are rocking your retirement or know someone who would make a great guest on our show, please send us an email at podcast@rockyourretirement.com.